Part 1, The Prelude in Blue. The grand old opera house was cloaked in shadows, save for the glow of silvered moonlight spilling through the stained glass windows. Inside, the cavernous opera hall stood in elegant shades of blue. Blue drapes framed the stage, while intricate blue glass chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a misty glow across rows of empty seats. This was the hall where Alaric, a young but ambitious mage in training, had come to seek his destiny. Alaric was neither a prince nor a hero. He was a simple apprentice who had grown up in the crowded streets of Yantl, the city of mags, serving under the guidance of a master who saw little of the spark others said Alaric held. But in Alaric's heart, there burned a fierce desire for greatness. He was not content with spells that could merely start a fire or change the color of his robes. He dreamed of something grander, to unlock the legendary doors of eternity, said to hold knowledge lost to both mortals and immortals. Only once every 300 years did the doors appear, and rumor had it they were due to materialize soon, somewhere hidden in the enchanted forest beyond the city. Alaric had learned through whispers that the doors would only open for a mage who possessed both wisdom and courage, and who had endured trials that proved his worth. Tonight, he came to the opera house seeking his first test. According to an ancient legend, a spirit of light resided within these blue halls, a spirit that had once belonged to a mage named Arlith, who had failed to open the doors centuries ago. It was said that Arlith's spirit would appear to any worthy soul who sought the doors and offer them a challenge. Only those who passed would be granted a key to the first of the doors. As Alaric stepped further into the hall, his breath echoed in the silence. Shadows seemed to stretch and waver, forming strange shapes around him. Then, from behind the massive blue curtains, a cold wind swept through, carrying a whisper of a melody, eerie, haunting, and yet alluring. Alaric's heart pounded as he called into the darkness, "Arlith, spirit of the opera hall. If you can hear me, I have come seeking the doors of eternity. Test me, and grant me the knowledge I seek." A thin, shimmering figure emerged from the shadows, taking the form of an old image in flowing robes. The spirit's face was pale, marked by wisdom and regret. "Young seeker," he intoned, his voice like a distant echo. "Do you believe yourself worthy to open the doors of eternity?" "I do," Alaric answered with steady resolve. The spirit tilted his head, his spectral eyes peering into Alaric's soul. "Your words are bold, but words alone cannot open those doors. I shall grant you your test. Should you succeed, you will receive the gift I once sought, the staff of radiant flame, which will light your path to the doors." Alaric braced himself as the spirit raised a hand. A blinding blue light shot from Arlith's fingers, spiraling around the stage. When the light faded, the opera hall had transformed into a maze of ice-blue walls and mirrors, casting Alaric's reflection back at him from every angle. Shadows flickered in each mirror, moving independently of him. "This is the maze of truth," Arlith's voice echoed through the hall. "Find your way to the center, and the staff will be yours. But beware, Alaric, for the shadows will reveal what you fear most. Only one who faces his true self can find his way to the center." Taking a deep breath, Alaric stepped into the maze. Almost immediately, a figure appeared in one of the mirrors, himself, but older, haggard, with eyes darkened by failure. "You'll never reach the doors of eternity," the reflection sneered. "You're nothing but a lowly apprentice, doomed to mediocrity." Shaken, Alaric forced himself to move on, reminding himself that this was a mere illusion, a trick of the maze. But as he wound through the passages, more reflections appeared, each one worse than the last. One mirror showed him abandoned, forgotten by the friends and mentors he'd known. Another showed him exhausted, facing an endless journey with nothing to guide him but his fading hope. But Alaric pressed forward, refusing to yield to the doubts that clawed at his mind. After what felt like an eternity, he reached a clearing at the maze's center. There, atop a stone pedestal, rested the staff of radiant flame. It glowed with a warm, golden light, promising strength and courage. As he reached for it, he was startled by a low growl behind him. Whirling around, he saw a towering creature, its form shifting from shadows to flesh. The beast, with sharp claws and burning red eyes, lunged at him, embodying his fears and doubts. Alaric gripped the staff, feeling its power surge through him. He raised it just as the creature pounced, shouting a spell he barely knew. A burst of light erupted from the staff, engulfing the beast and causing it to dissipate into smoke. Panting, Alaric stood alone in the clearing, the staff humming with energy in his hands. He knew then that he had passed the test. The whole faded back to its original form, and Arlitha's spirit appeared before him once more, a smile playing on his spectral lips. "You have done well, young one. You may now carry the staff of radiant flame. But remember, this is only the beginning of your journey. The doors of eternity demand more than courage alone." With the staff in hand, Alaric exited the opera house, stepping into the night with a newfound sense of purpose. He knew his journey was far from over, and that greater challenges awaited him. But he was ready to face them, armed with both the staff and the determination that burned within him. Part 2, The Forest of Shadows. As dawn broke over Yantl, Alaric could feel the weight of his next challenge pressing upon him. The staff of radiant flame thrummed in his grip, as if sensing the obstacles ahead. With little time to lose, he set off toward the Whispering Wood, a dense, mystical forest that lay beyond the city walls. It was within these trees that he would seek the first of the doors of eternity. The forest was alive with strange murmurs and whispers that seemed to come from the trees themselves. Gnarled branches twisted together overhead, casting the forest floor into a perpetual twilight. Legends told that these woods were home to 100 magical creatures and ancient spirits, some friendly, others fiercely protective of their secrets. With each step, Alaric felt the eerie presence of the forest's hidden dwellers watching him. The shadows danced around him, and in the distance, he could hear faint, melodic laughter. Alaric gripped the staff of radiant flame tightly, its warm glow pushing back the shadows and giving him courage. "I must find the door," he reminded himself, pressing forward. But as he rounded a bend, Alaric came upon a clearing where the trees stood back, revealing a shimmering pool. Reflected in its still waters was the image of a creature, a small, luminous being with wings of shimmering gold. It was a sprite, a rare magical being said to be both mischievous and wise. The sprite hovered above the pool, her eyes keen and bright as she studied Alaric. "So, you're the one seeking the doors of eternity," she said, her voice like the tinkling of bells. "It's been centuries since anyone dared. But tell me, boy, do you even know what you're looking for?" Alaric met her gaze, feeling a strange mixture of caution and awe. "I seek knowledge and power. The kind that only the doors can grant," he replied. The sprite tilted her head, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "The doors of eternity aren't easily opened, even with the staff of radiant flame. And beyond the doors lie truths that are not always kind." "I am prepared," Alaric said firmly. "Whatever trials I must face, I will." The sprite regarded him silently for a moment before nodding. "Very well, then. I shall help you, but only because I sense you are more than you seem." With a flick of her fingers, the water in the pool rippled and transformed, showing an image of the path ahead. You must follow this trail until you reach the circle of shadows. There, you will face your greatest fear. Only then will the door reveal itself." Before Alaric could thank her, the sprite vanished, leaving the pool's surface smooth and calm once more. With renewed determination, he followed the trail shown to him, winding through dense thickets and patches of enchanted mist. At last, he arrived at the circle of shadows, a ring of massive stone pillars standing in a silent grove. The air was thick, and the sky overhead had turned an ominous grey, as though the forest itself held its breath. As he stepped into the circle, the shadows between the stones deepened, and a figure began to emerge. Alaric's heart stopped as he recognized the form. It was his master, the very mage who had taken him in and taught him everything he knew. But there was something cold and menacing about this figure. His master's eyes gleamed with a darkness Alaric had never seen before, and his expression was twisted with disdain. So the figure sneered, his voice dripping with contempt, "You think yourself worthy of the doors of eternity? You, who couldn't even master the simplest spells without my help?" Alaric swallowed, a wave of doubt washing over him. "You're not real," he muttered. "You're just a shadow." "Oh, but I am real," the figure replied with a cruel smile. "I am every doubt you've ever had, every failure you've tried to forget. You cannot pass this trial, Alaric. You're nothing but a scared, insignificant apprentice." The words struck Alaric like a blow, but he gripped the staff tighter, feeling its warmth pulse through him. "I may have doubted myself once," he said, his voice growing stronger, "but I've come too far to turn back now. You are only a shadow of my fear, and I will not let you control me." With a fierce cry, Alaric raised the staff of radiant flame, casting a blinding light into the dark figure's face. The shadow staggered back, hissing and writhing as the light pierced through it, and within moments, it vanished into the ground like mist in the morning sun. Silence fell over the grove, and as the last echoes of the shadow's cries faded, a low rumble sounded from behind one of the stone pillars. Turning, Alaric saw a doorway appear, carved into the air itself as though by an invisible hand. It shimmered with a faint silver light, and intricate symbols glowed along its edges, the door of eternity. Heart pounding, he approached the door, knowing that this was only the first of many. But just as he was about to step through, he felt a sharp pull on his shoulder. He whirled around to see a man clad in dark robes, his face hidden beneath a hood. The figure's voice was smooth and low, like the murmur of a serpent. "You are not the only one seeking the power of the doors," the figure said, revealing a pair of crimson eyes beneath the hood. "I, too, am bound for the knowledge within, and I will not have a mere apprentice in my way." Alaric felt a chill race down his spine as he recognized the man, Chiron, a rogue sorcerer notorious for his cruelty and cunning. Chiron had long been a feared figure in Yantl, rumored to dabble in forbidden magic. Alaric had heard tales of his power but had never thought he would encounter him here. "What do you want, Chiron?" Alaric asked, keeping his voice steady. "I want what you want, boy," Chiron replied with a smirk. "And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to claim it. So step aside, and I may spare you." But Alaric stood his ground, his grip on the staff unwavering. "The doors aren't meant for those who seek power for themselves," he said. "I won't let you through." Chiron's smirk twisted into a scowl. "Then you will suffer the consequences." With a flick of his hand, Chiron summoned a dark whirlwind of shadows, which swirled around him, growing larger and more menacing. Alaric raised the staff of radiant flame, channeling all his courage and strength into its glow. Light burst forth, clashing with the whirlwind, and a fierce battle erupted between the two mags. Chiron's shadows were relentless, twisting and lunging at Alaric with serpentine speed. But Alaric held firm, each swing of the staff banishing the darkness inch by inch. Their magic collided in a storm of light and shadow, sending tremors through the forest itself. At last, Alaric saw an opening and channeled every last bit of power into one final strike. The light from his staff flared brighter than ever, breaking through Chiron's defenses and sending him staggering back. With a roar of defiance, Chiron vanished into the shadows, retreating but leaving behind a warning. "This is not over, apprentice," he hissed. "You may have won today, but I will return. And when I do, you will regret standing in my way." The shadows dissipated, leaving Alaric alone once more. Breathing heavily, he turned back to the door, the staff's glow now a steady pulse in his hand. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward and passed through the door, disappearing into a realm of swirling mist and ethereal light. As the door closed behind him, Alaric felt a deep, inexplicable calm wash over him. He knew that the trials would only grow more dangerous, and that Chiron would surely return. But he also knew that he had faced his own fears and emerged victorious. And somewhere, deep within his soul, he began to sense the true nature of the doors, not simply a path to knowledge, but a journey that would test every fiber of his being. Part 3: The Doors of Eternity. Alaric emerged from the swirling mists into a vast, otherworldly hall. Columns of starlit marble stretched into the sky, and intricate runes carved into the walls glowed with a faint silver light. At the far end of the hall stood 3 doors, each gleaming with a mysterious aura. The Doors of Eternity. Their ancient, timeless presence filled Alaric with awe and trepidation. These doors held the knowledge he sought, but he knew they also concealed truths that could break even the strongest of hearts. He approached the first door, feeling a tug deep within him, as though the door itself was calling to him. Engraved in delicate runes above it were the words, "The Door of Memory." Alaric hesitated, but he placed his hand on the door, feeling a warm pulse beneath his palm. The door swung open, and he stepped through, finding himself transported into a scene from his own past. He was in his small childhood home, sitting beside his mother as she tended to a fire. She looked as he remembered her, with kind eyes and a gentle smile, humming a song that had comforted him during countless nights. Alaric felt a lump in his throat, an ache he hadn't expected. Memories of his family flooded back, the love and warmth he'd left behind in his pursuit of power and knowledge. The scene shifted, and now he saw himself as a young apprentice, being reprimanded by his master, his cheeks burning with shame. He'd been so eager to prove himself back then, constantly seeking praise yet fearing he'd never measure up. He watched as his younger self struggled, faltered, but persisted. As the memories flowed around him, Alaric began to realize that the doors of eternity weren't just meant to offer wisdom from the outside, they were also meant to awaken the knowledge that lay within. He saw his own failures, but he also saw his growth. He understood that his journey wasn't just about power, it was about learning, humility, and resilience. The memories faded, and Alaric found himself back in the great hall, standing before the second door. Above it, runes spelled out the door of insight. His heart raced, but he moved forward, pressing his hand against the cold metal. The door swung open, and he stepped into a blinding white light. When the light cleared, Alaric stood in a vast, endless library, its shelves stacked with scrolls, books, and tablets. Figures roamed the aisles, ghostly apparitions of great mags, scholars, and philosophers who had come to the doors in ages past. A figure approached him, an elderly image with eyes like molten silver, who exuded an air of wisdom and sadness. "Welcome," Alaric the Mage greeted him. You have come seeking knowledge. But be warned, knowledge is a burden as much as it is a gift. Tell me, what do you seek to gain from these doors? Alaric hesitated, then replied, I seek understanding. Of magic, of life, and of myself. I want to be more than I am. The elder mage studied him for a moment, then nodded. Very well, but understand this, true wisdom comes not from what you learn, but from what you choose to do with what you learn. Knowledge can heal or harm, enlighten or destroy. You alone must choose how you will wield it. The elder mage handed Alaric a book bound in midnight blue leather. Its title read The Infinite Mind. As Alaric opened it, he glimpsed secrets of magic, powerful spells, and insights into realms beyond his understanding. But with each page he turned, he also felt the weight of those who had wielded such power unwisely, leaving devastation in their wake. He felt the gravity of every choice he would make from this point forward. Returning to the great hall, Alaric took a deep breath, his heart both heavier and more resolute. Before him loomed the final door, darker than the others, etched with faint runes that read the door of destiny. He knew this was his ultimate test, the one that would determine whether he was truly worthy of the door's secrets. With a trembling hand, he pushed the door open and stepped through. He found himself on a desolate mountaintop, facing the rogue sorcerer Chiron once more. But this time, the atmosphere was different. Chiron's expression was not one of anger, but of cold, calculating resolve. It seems we meet again, Alaric, Chiron said, his voice a low rumble. I told you that I, too, would seek the knowledge beyond these doors. And now we are both here. Alaric gripped the staff of radiant flame, bracing himself for a final showdown. But Chiron merely raised his hand, and in a flash, the two were transported into a dark void. Around them, memories, visions, and images of Alaric's and Chiron's lives whirled together, intertwining in a confusing, chaotic storm. Do you see now, Alaric? Chiron's voice echoed through the void. We are not so different. Both of us were cast aside by our mentors, driven by ambition, hungering for power. You think yourself a hero, but in truth, you are just as willing to sacrifice anything for knowledge. Alaric staggered, feeling the pull of Chiron's words like a weight on his chest. Images of his own ambition flashed before him, his moments of desperation, the sacrifices he had made, the people he had hurt. For a moment, he wondered if Chiron was right, if he was simply following the same dark path. But then he remembered his journey, the choices he'd made that had led him here. He remembered the kindness in his mother's eyes, the struggles he'd endured to improve himself, and the wisdom imparted by those who had guided him along the way. He wasn't like Chiron, because he had chosen a path of growth, of seeking knowledge to help others and to honor those he loved. No, Chiron, Alaric said firmly, his voice unwavering. I may have been driven by ambition, but I am also driven by hope, by love, and by a desire to be better. I choose to use my knowledge not to dominate, but to uplift. And that makes all the difference. With that declaration, the void shattered, and Chiron fell back, his form flickering like a candle in the wind. His eyes blazed with anger, but Alaric raised the staff of radiant flame, releasing a burst of pure light that engulfed his rival. Chiron screamed, his form dissolving into shadow until he was gone, leaving Alaric standing alone. The darkness faded, and Alaric found himself once more in the hall before the doors of eternity. The three doors now glowed with a brilliant light, and he felt a sense of peace and clarity wash over him. He had passed the final test, not by overpowering Chiron, but by remaining true to himself. As he turned to leave, the doors of eternity began to shimmer, their light brightening until it filled the entire hall. Alaric felt a warmth and calm he'd never known before, as if the very essence of the doors had merged with his soul. A voice echoed softly in his mind, the voice of the elder mage from the Door of Insight. Go forth, Alaric. The knowledge you sought has been within you all along. Use it well, and you will find that the true doors of eternity are those you open within yourself. With the staff of radiant flame as his guide, Alaric stepped out of the hall, leaving the doors of eternity behind. As he walked into the dawn, he felt no need for further power or secrets. He had found what he truly sought, the wisdom to be a force of light, a keeper of knowledge, and a protector of those who could not protect themselves. And so, his journey ended, or perhaps, it had only just begun.